Alright, what's up guys? Alright, so today in this video I'm kinda gonna wing it. See what we can come up with, what we could talk about. Alright, but look, I have kind of a little direction I wanna go in. So you see, my spiritual practice is something that I created. It's me carving my own path. But I didn't see a point in recreating the wheel. We have tons of information. We have tons of different types of practices, magic, spiritism, freaking mysticism. We have all this esoteric knowledge that has been built and built upon over the centuries, maybe even millennia. So why recreate the wheel? So I draw from all these different components, all these different locations, these cultures, and all of these things. But ultimately, what I'm looking for are things that are true to what I already currently believe. So I am a non dualist. I believe that the separation between self and other is an illusion, which is something that I suppose wasn't something that emerged naturally. I suppose I was influenced by Hinduism when I developed this belief, but when I looked further back when I was young, I already believed this idea of non dualism before I ever heard the term non dualism, before I ever knew anything about Hinduism other than it existed, right? And I've had some experiences that lead me to believe that my higher self was presenting these things to me in the past, and it was coming from a place where I already knew the future. Some like, and I know that might sound crazy to some of y'all. Some of y'all might know exactly what I'm talking about because you get these downloads, you get these visions and auditory stimulation where you hear something or see something or experience something where you're aware of something long before you were before you actually learned the thing intellectually, right? For instance, one situation that I've had an experience that I thought was pretty cool was a while back. Even a while back. I'm talking like about 20 years ago. I was sitting in school and I'm talking to my friend, and he had just converted to Hinduism. And this was before I knew about Hinduism, but I assumed these ideas were in my consciousness somehow. And my friend, who is Muslim, says, like, why are you talking to him about this? Like, your family's Christian. Wouldn't your family be upset about this? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't, uh, you know, I don't do my spiritual practice is not based off of what my family does or believes or whatever. Although I was fond of Jesus, I was fond of God, Holy Spirit, and all of these things, but I wasn't completely indoctrinated by the Bible. I believed that there was more to spirituality than just this, and I wasn't going to allow people to just dictate to me what I'm supposed to believe. And when we were talking about this, I sort of went into this light trance and I started saying, oh, so like Kali Ma and Krishna and Ganesh and blah, 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 and Narasimha. And my friends looking at me like, yeah, how do you know? Like, yeah, these are the names of my gods. And I was just naming Hindu gods before I read anything on it. At the time, um, the only literature, the only anything that I've experienced from spirituality was Christian. I knew nothing about any other religion at this time. This must have been when I was maybe 15, around there. And like a couple of years later, I started getting really deep into Taoism because I was practicing Tai Chi and Wing Chun and Qigong and Kung Fu. And I was doing all of these Far East Kung Fu type practices, which I loved the martial art aspect of it, but I was more in it because of the philosophy. I really enjoyed the philosophy. Asian philosophy was just, something that I really, really gravitated towards. So this is just one cool experience that I've had, and I thought I should mention it. But as I remember distinctly, speaking to a cousin of mine, and we were talking about God, and I said, she asked me like, "What is it? What do you think God is? Like, what do you, whatever?" And I said, to be honest, I feel like I kind of feel like I am God, but then I stopped myself and I'm like, wait, it's not that I am God, is I feel like God is everything, and I'm a part of that everything. So God is within me and without me, and I am it. But I refrain from calling myself God because I don't want to adopt this sense of grandioseness. I don't want to be the type of person that says, "Oh, I am the God, worship me." And saying that you're God doesn't mean that you expect people to worship you. Personally, I don't want any worship or any of that. Like I am not somebody that desires praise. Like it's just not something that makes my pickle tickle. It's just not my thing. I would, instead of someone praising me and pretty much massaging my dick, I would prefer to be in a respectful conversation where you ask questions about what I believe. And if you find some sort of flaw or or some sort of inconsistency, I would like for you to challenge it, because through that challenging of that inconsistency, either I have an explanation for that inconsistency where it's actually a paradox rather than a contradiction, or it exposes me to a blind side that I wasn't aware of, which allows me to refine my belief or abandon it because it's flawed inherently. So this idea of being God is that I am a manifestation of the uh, supreme, which is the unmanifested. This God is not something that can even be called God, as it's said in the Tao. The true Tao cannot be named. The Tao that can be named is not the true Tao, right? So what happens is this unmanifested supreme thing is not a thing. So it's so difficult to talk about it because I have to use these words in order for you to understand what I'm saying. But you can't actually use these words without bringing it from the unmanifested into the manifestation, into the manifested, therefore completely, undoing what it is or what it isn't. Um, or its isness. I don't even understand the correct words to use to describe it because technically it can't be described. So I'm trying to describe something that's indescribable, and that's where the hiccup appears, right? For instance, it lacks all characteristics, traits, and attributes. So it is nothingness in its purest form, the absence of time, space, physics, chemistry. There is no natural law, there is no phenomenon, there is no material, no energy, no matter, no light, no vibration. Personally, I believe that in this nothingness, there isn't even awareness or consciousness. So some people would like to attribute pure awareness to this concept, but I do not. I believe that there is no consciousness or awareness in pure absolute nothingness, because nothingness is what is the result of oneness. When everything becomes one, when there is only one, there is no different components. Like I can say I'm one, I am one body, but within me there are different things, right? I have organs and vessels and blood and other fluids and liquids. I There's muscle and fat and skin, and there's all of these components within me. But if I was one thing, then it would just be like there would be no other things within me. But even on a molecular level, even let's say I was a statue made of stone, and that stone is just one thing. But even then, within it, there are other things because this stone is created of a particular makeup of molecules, right? Wait, am I saying that correctly? Not molecules, atoms, right? So within this one thing, there are actually many things. There are many atoms being held together in a specific structure to create this matter. So true oneness would mean that there aren't even atoms because each atom is a separate thing, right? So true oneness would be imagine just I can't even say one singular atom because we've split open an atom and there was stuff inside of it, right? So, so when we look at true oneness, we're talking about literally just one thing. There is nothing outside, there's nothing inside. There's just this one thing. And when you get to that point of singularity, there is simply no distinction between the one thing and the no thing, right? Because there's only one thing, therefore, there is no chemical reaction, there is no molecular or molecular structure, there is no um, space for it to exist in or time in order for there to be movement. There's just one thing. So one thing is actually no thing. When there's a true singularity, it just disappears into true nothingness, which is not complete white, which is all light, or complete black, which is just empty space. It is transparent, and there is nothing beyond that transparency. So you can't even acknowledge the transparency. Right. So then I started researching and looking into these different philosophies, theological philosophies, mysticism and esotericism. And not at first, it was to try to find my path, to find where was I supposed to be. But then I started developing this sense of I don't need to find something new. What I need to do is find something that already exists within me, and I started looking into all of these different components of things that already have been spoken about centuries before I uttered the words. And that led me to things like Neoplatonism. And in Neoplatonism, I have some notes here, so I'm going to be reading, not really reading, but sort of like just jogging my memory. In Neoplatonism, we have this sense of the one which is the unmanifested source beyond all being, and this one's true this oneness, this unmanifested source from which all emanations come from, is beyond being. Therefore, this is kind of like the teaching that you would find in Buddhism of non-self, non-being, where a Buddhist once said, when you meditate and you find peace and you're truly still, and the other Buddhist was like, well, then what? And then you would become even stiller, and you would go through this process and that process. And the Buddhist kept saying, well, what's after that? What's after that? What's after that? And eventually, the Buddha said, at this point, this person has achieved non-being. They pretty much have dissolved. Their ego is completely destroyed, and they simply have no awareness of anything anymore because they're no longer aware of the separation between self and other. Without the separation between self and other, you can't be aware of anything, because how can you acknowledge anything that's around you if you're not able to perceive anything outside of you, or anything inside of you, or even the you itself? Without knowledge of self, you can't perceive anything. And then the Buddha says, well, what's after that? And then the other Buddha, the like the master Buddhist, was like, well, we just allow them to be one. At this point, this is the highest state. This would be, I suppose this would be even above what Hindus call samadhi. So this oneness. And then we have nous, Nous. I can't pronounce that. Nous. Nous, divine intellect, first emanation. So now, Nuance is talking about the first emanation. Now, I would contest this a little bit. I'm not sure if intellect would be the first manifestation because I believe there needs to be a conscious mind in order for there to be intellect. If we had a universe with only inanimate objects, there would be no intellect. And I believe that inanimate things existed prior to animate things. So there probably was matter that wasn't alive before there was matter that was alive, like human beings, animals, insects, folia, plants and stuff. Now we might get stuck in the weeds when we talk about what does alive even mean, because let's say prior to all living things that we consider to be living things, if there were stars, do you consider a star to be alive? It changes over time. It dies. There is some sort of decay. There's change after death, where it continues to change after it dies. So technically, it does fit the qualities of something that's alive. And a planet that's sustainable, that sustains life, can be seen as alive as well. We have fluids, malted rock that's flowing through underneath the surface, and it is changing and creating. There's weather. There's all of these processes that affect each other and cause this planet to be in a certain way, right? But I would assume that before any stars were created and before any planets were created, there probably was just, you know, like sort of this cosmic dust. And at some point, these concepts would be so alien that even the most out there person would be like, I can't conceive that thing to be alive, right? So, most likely, there was something before the intellect. But what we do know is that the moment that conscious beings became present, there was a sense of intellect. Even before we had language, there was still a sense of that is water. I can drink it. Even though they couldn't say it, there was some sort of intellect. There was some sort of mental process that allowed them to distinguish between this and that. And I'm not just speaking about humans. We can talk about animals, insects, even plants. Plants understand the nutrients that's in the soil, and there's even plants that have moved liquid from one location to another location so that a plant that isn't getting liquid can get that liquid, right? These are things that have happened within our planet, and I assume that outside of our planet similar things have happened at some point somewhere. Now, the very something that's a little more closer to what I believe is this idea. Hold on, guys. Let me jog my memory. So, yeah, so what I was trying to say, this idea of intellect being the first manifestation is a possibility because there's a conundrum, there's a bit of a paradox. We might look at it from a realist point of view, saying that these physical things existed separate from our conceptualization of it and our being able to witness it. But there's a conundrum there because the universe that we know, the galaxy that we know, the solar system that we know, the planet that we know, all of these things exist the way that they exist because of our perception. We specifically have our five basic senses, which allow us to hear, see, smell, taste, and feel. And this is unique to the life that we consider to be life. So that would be humans and animals, insects, and perhaps plants. We're not 100% sure about plants and what are their senses. But I mention this because if the physical reality that I'm witnessing is the way that it is because of my perception, and specifically because of the way my brain, excuse me, specifically because of the way my brain perceives um, the information being collected by my senses, then that would lead me to ask, if it was not for my senses and not for my brain's interpretation of that data, would the physical reality look the same way it looks to us? For all we know, if all conscious beings that we're aware of, if all living creatures that we consider to be living as we know them on Earth, if all of these living creatures were to go extinct right now, would the moon continue looking like the moon? When I look at the moon, there is light from the sun reflecting off of the surface of the moon. That light hits our atmosphere, which causes it to change, gives it certain tints of color, so on and so on. That light enters my eyes. That data goes into my brain and it's processed. And in here, I see the image of the moon. If we short circuit that transition of data to my brain, if my brain is no longer the thing interpreting the data, does the thing being witnessed continue to look the way that it does? So this gives me a sense that perhaps Neoplatonism and their idea of intellect, I would still contest intellect, but I would say intellect is still something that emerges from awareness. But I still understand intellect as an element of the mind, right? So can we say that the physical reality, the physical universe, exists specifically because of the mind's interpretation of it? Meaning that perhaps if there were no minds to interpret the data, if there were no eyes to absorb the light and create this data that is then interpreted into the image that we see, would that thing continue looking the way that it does? Or would the universe just be a giant mist of atoms that are not um structured in any specific type of way? And even that, because we have tools that allows us to understand what atoms look like, roughly, right? I'm not a scientist, so I'm not 100% sure how accurate our interpretation of what an atom looks like is. But long story short, we do have a concept of what it looks like. Would that even look the way that it does if our mind was not interpreting this data that we're collecting, right? So this brings me to this state where maybe without conscious beings, without um, awareness, without our senses, without a brain that interprets the data collected by those senses, maybe even atoms do not exist the way that they appear to exist to us, which means that the universe might be in a state of just vibration or just light. But if there's no eyes, no mind to perceive light, does the light exist? Right? So we get down into this sticky, muddy hole where we don't actually know what was the first emanation. It could be that the universe, this nothingness and its infinite potential expanded, and the universe was created, but the universe didn't truly become manifested until the moment that conscious beings manifested in a specific location, in a location in general. It could be that the first manifestation was a conscious mind because that conscious mind was the element needed for the universe to be perceivable. And the moment that it was perceivable, it began to be. So it could be that the universe is what, 14, 20, whatever amount of billions of years old, right? And I think the Earth is like 4 billion years old or something. So the universe must be a lot older. I forgot the exact date that scientists give for the age of the universe. But this puts me in a place where I'm saying perhaps this singularity persisted where the universe was there, but it wasn't yet manifested. And the second that a conscious mind manifested, that conscious mind gave shape to the entirety of the universe simply by being able to perceive it. And this can get sticky in other situations because I'm assuming the first conscious mind would only be able to perceive that which is visible from Earth. Or if this first conscious mind existed on some other planet, it would only be able to perceive that which it can perceive from its location. So it would perceive its surroundings, and if it looks up into the sky, assuming that there is a sky, it would perceive that which is beyond, you know, its Earth, at least that which is visible. So these are things that I like to think about because it gives us an avenue. It doesn't give us it doesn't give us a legitimate answer, but it gives us new ways to think where perhaps conscious minds are intrinsically inherent in the existence of the universe. And now this leads me to a concept from Tantra or from Hinduism, and specifically Tantra. In my specific version of Tantra, oh shit, I forgot the name. Whatever, it's not important. Point is, Kalima is the supreme because Kalima represents Shakti, and Shakti is this um emergent this energy that is underlying energy behind everything. It is the consciousness, it is this energy from which all things emerge, right? Become capable of emerging. So this, as you can see Kalima behind me, it's a little dark, so you might not be able to see the entire image, but she's standing on Shiva. And Shiva represents consciousness. And the esoteric teaching behind that image, the reason she's stepping on Shiva is because Shakti is superior to Shiva. The energy is superior to the consciousness because the energy is essential for consciousness to be able to exist. Without the primary primal energy, consciousness is not um, um, manifestable, if that's a word. It's like a fucking lunchable. All right, but so Shakti is necessary for Shiva to exist. Consciousness can't exist without the energy that allows it to exist. So Shiva is dependent on Shakti. Consciousness is dependent on energy, and awareness is dependent on consciousness. That which isn't conscious can't be aware, and that does not possess energy can't be conscious. So Shakti is the real start of everything. There is first energy. From that energy manifests consciousness. From that consciousness manifests the ability to be aware. Now, yeah. So, okay, let me take a second for a breather. All right. So, yeah, guys. All right. So this brings me to another component of Neoplatonism, which is emanationism, which is the idea that reality flows from unity to multiplicity. And this idea is to say that unity being the one, the unmanifested, reality flows from this nothingness, this state of nothingness, but within it is infinite potential. So it holds the potential for all things possible and unpossible. It's all things. So this potential doesn't is not just the potential for all things real, but also things that are not real. For instance, I am an emanation, but within my mind, I can generate other emanations. Personally, I am not a type of person that believes unicorns exist, but if I use my visualization techniques, I can imagine a unicorn. And I can imagine some pretty little My Little Pony type unicorn, fucking about. Or I can, create some sort of demonic, evil unicorn that wants to eat your dick. And these concepts to me are not real, but somehow my mind is able to manifest this image within my mind, making me a manifestation of the unity, and that which is inside my mind is also a manifestation of that unity, that oneness. Right? So everything that is real and everything that is not real, everything that's imaginative, everything metaphysical, ethereal, supernal, um, I think I said ethereal or ethereal. Um, all of these things are emanations, right? These are all manifestations of the oneness or the noneness, or what I call null, right? So, um, in Neoplatonism, which is extremely old, they already had this idea, and it's quite astonishing because this idea of an emanate in I can't speak English anymore. Okay, hold on. Emanationism. Emanationism. All right, I learned English again. All right, so emanationism, which is from Neoplatonism, I'm assuming this influenced Kabbalah because Kabbalah has this same concept broken down into three steps, which is Ein, which is nothingness, the um, true nothingness, void, lack of all characteristics, traits, attributes, no space, no time, no physics, no chemistry, no matter, no energy, no nothing. It is complete and total void. And then Ein Sof, which is the infinite potential. Now, the thing is that Ein and Ein Sof are actually one thing, but in Kabbalah, we split them into two so that you can see the difference. Because this is the nothingness right here, and this is the infinite right here. But the infinite lies within the nothingness, and the infinite is indistinguishable from the nothingness, because this is infinite potential, but potential isn't a thing, it's the potential for a thing. So, for instance, this hand, like let's say I keep my hand straight, this hand has the potential to smack this way, right? But it hasn't done it yet. So that smack that I can perform with this hand doesn't exist, but the potential is there, right? So Ein and Ein Sof is actually one thing, and where emanation really begins is Ein Sof Or, which is the limitless light, and that is like the beginning of the metamorphosis from not unmanifested to manifestation. So Ein and Ein Sof being complete void and infinite potential within it, and Ein Sof Or being the first emergent, when it first emerged, it first expanded, and this light became present. And this light would be energy and vibration simultaneously, because ultimately light is a vibration and light is an energy. So, in soft or would be the beginning of of energy, light, and vibration, and from there we then have all of the manifestations, which we would follow through the tree of life, going from Kether down to Malkut, and each thing giving a different element to existence, down till we get to Malkut, which is the physical reality that we know. So Malkut is not just Earth, but the kingdom. It would be the entire universe itself. All right, give me a second, guys. And now, strangely, just going straight into it, strangely enough, when we look at Christian mysticism and Christian theology, there's mentions of this non-self, this unmanifested God. There is, hold up.